Hi, and welcome to Chris's car for Adventures from the Shed.
Adventures from the car?
Adventures from the non-shed, this shed. You know, I'm going to have to press that button again. So here we are in Chris's car. And the reason we're doing this is because, you know what? It's been 5 years since Adventures from the Shed started. 5 years. Which makes it the 5th anniversary. And you have to say 5th.
Does that mean I only missed out on 1 full year?
Let's say yes.
I think so. Yeah.
For anyone who's listening to or watching this, when did Chris show up? Anybody know? I don't expect you to answer because this is being recorded.
Even I became aware of it was mid-2015.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I'd ever mentioned it on the podcast. One thing that I thought was really cool is one day, Chris and I went out to lunch, and he was listening to the podcast in his car. So I got in his car, and I got to hear myself doing the podcast, which was really cool. I thought that was really nice.
Fancy.
But gosh, from our humble beginnings to our less than humble current state.
Yeah. We're actually doing the podcast out of the car now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Total mobile.
Completely mobile on a mobile phone. So for those who don't know,
the trunk, don't worry.
Yeah, don't. If you hear thumping, that's just.
He likes it back there. Trust us.
For those who don't know, which is probably almost everybody, because I don't think I've posted it out there yet. That's Joe. This is me. I'm Joe Hay, and that's Chris. I have taken a job with my previous employer here, meaning where we are right now, in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I have been kind of busy. Between that and some other stuff I have going on, we've kind of taken a little hiatus from the regular podcast. Definitely wanted to reach out and say hi during this special event, moment, thing. But hopefully within the next couple of months, we'll have something new coming your way. I'd say at least an audio portion. We're
back to the basics.
Yeah, Chris and I were talking about it a little bit. Chances are we'll have something in a few months. But in the meantime, we are, like I said, went from just sitting in the shed to now sitting in a car. How advanced is that? And the air conditioner's on because it's like 90-something degrees here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I tried to get support of the International Space Station, but apparently there's a thing about that. So
what?
Yeah, it didn't work out.
All right, so anybody out there with contacts, get us
NASA,
onto the International Space Station.
If they want to send us up, that's cool.
That's a good
or
point.
Or Russians, whatever.
We would love to do this.
We'll take a ride from anybody.
I want to do this from orbit.
Except for the Indians. I think they lost their lunar landers.
Yeah, I heard about that. The thing got lost right after it launched. So, well, I don't know if I'll screw them. Well, I'll think about that. Yeah. So, Chris, where did we start?
Well, I mentioned talking about the evolution of the podcast.
Yeah.
Like kind of how it started, and then obviously you kind of did some video, but now we were almost doing video all the time. Yeah,
that's a good point. So when we first started, it was, as far as what we were doing, was the D&D starter set. That was the first 26 or so episodes, however many it was. And there was a mixture of things at the time. So it was just audio. But another thing I did right at the beginning of the podcast, for those who want to pay attention to it, I recorded straight through, and then I cut and spliced things afterwards. So you may notice at the end of episode 1 of the starter set, it kind of fades out, and at episode 2 fades in like 10 seconds of the previous episode.
Okay.
And it comes back in.
Yeah, because when I jumped in, it was like we had it set.
We were recording
it. We know when to cut it.
Because that was a lot less work for me.
Yeah, it makes more sense. It was nice to end the taking episode. The breaks.
Yeah, definitely.
So did you start out? Okay, you played D&D. Was the plan to go? I got this game, Dungeon World. I really want to start playing it, or was that after like, hey, I need something else to play on this podcast that's better?
I liked Dungeon World a lot more than D&D from the time I played it, which would have been 4 years previous to the podcast. Okay. And because of that, I had always planned on at least playing some Dungeon World on the podcast, for sure. Okay. But at the same time, this whole D&D thing was going on. It was 2015? 14? Maybe, whatever the hell it was. I got to add. I have to make ad things go. D&D game had just come out. The D&D 5th edition player handbook had just come out. You could get the starter set from Amazon. I got it from Amazon. My local gaming store didn't have it and it didn't have it in the time I needed it in order to get the podcast started, all that stuff. Anyway, so I started with the starter set, which I'll go on record as saying again, best starter set, best initial investment in Dungeons and Dragons I can think of. You get all the dice, you get a basic rule book. You can continue to play that adventure past the level 1 through 5 that it's designed for. Plus all the character sheets tell you what to do when you level up. Everything you need to know is right on the sheet. Great setup. But we started there, and I did plan on playing Dungeon World. And I do believe the next thing we did was Dungeon World. And I think it was the Perils of Paradisi was the first one after the starter set. I could look, but I'm actually using 2 devices to record video for this and audio for this. See, look, there's that thing's recording the audio.
Now you know where our hands are at.
Yes. Now you know. I'm recording the audio straight from my crotch. As usual. There's no real difference there.
Cod piece cam.
Cod cam.
That'd be all right, actually.
So we did a lot of that, starting off with just playing what was there in the starter set. And one of the things that I've been told by a couple of people is they really appreciated the way we did the starter set, in that the starter set itself, we played it more or less as it was written. I changed very little. Even though I know more than once I complained that it was keeping my hands tied. I had to follow things in it and I couldn't make up a lot of stuff.
But if you want to give people, especially if they've never played a role-playing game, hey, this is what a starter set from D&D looks like, and this is how it works out. It's straight, and we're not changing anything. That's the way to go.
And I've listened to several other podcasts, and I guess I can understand what people have said, that others have just taken a lot of liberties with the starter set. And that makes sense, because in a lot of ways, if you're a D&D fan and you already know what it's supposed to be, it might bore you.
Right.
And if you've played it yourself, it might bore you. But at the same time, you might hear how somebody else handled it.
Right.
And so we did that to start. And I guess as part of our evolution, we had cast changes too. And we're going to see people walking through the parking lot, so we'll keep getting distracted, I'm sure. But we had...
Who are original members?
The original people on the podcast. Me, I think I was there.
Yeah.
Then we had Mickey. I always have to look at this from my left to right. This is the table. So we had Mickey and JJ and Kurt and Mike. Those are the original 4, aside from me, which would be 5.
And those were all met at...
Yeah, so, and this is an interesting thing. Chris and I were talking about this before, but we've probably encouraged you through the podcast before, especially on sidebars, etc. If you have a local gaming store that does something like a D&D Encounters or Pathfinder Society or any kind of regular role-playing game thing, I'm holding this phone up long enough, my hand's going to start twitching. Look at that. Going to get everybody, I'll get everybody all seasick. But if you have a local gaming store that has that option out there, do it. Because the reason I say that is everybody who started on the podcast is somebody I met at a local gaming store through a D&D game or a Pathfinder game. I met Mike, JJ, and Mickey through... well, let me take that back. I met JJ and Mickey through a D&D Encounter session. I met Mike through a combination of D&D Encounters and a Dungeon World game that I had run for a few years before the podcast. And I met Kurt at a Pathfinder Society game. So... that is a great way to meet people to play. It also gives you a neutral place where you can learn about the other people before you actually have them over your house or your shed or your car, wherever it may be that you choose to get together. So those are the originals. I want to say it was a year-ish into it. Mike left to go on to do his podcast, which I believe you can still find out there as the Dungeoneers or Dungeoneers podcast. Check that out. There's even a series of myself running the Curse of Strahd. I was going to say Curse of Ravenloft, but that's not it. The Curse of Strahd on the Dungeoneers podcast. So especially if you enjoy listening to my mellifluous tones, go ahead and check that out. And from there, after Mike left, we adopted Chris.
Yeah, Britt, I think, was the intern.
Oh, Britt, and wow. So you might not know.
Starred first.
Y'all out there, that's right, because Chris was there. Y'all out there might not know this, but Britt, who was on the podcast for a while, is actually my niece. Never really said that on the podcast, but she did. She joined us for a D&D starter set reunion kind of thing. We came back, and then we had a storyline going where Chris played Jer, was a cleric in a Dungeon World campaign. Can't remember which one it was, though. I want to say it was probably a Paradisi one.
Yeah, I can't remember the other characters' names.
But then afterwards, I said, you know what? Chris didn't suck that much. When Britt left, we had Chris join. Yes, and that's when that happened. And it's been, I don't know, we've had a couple others come and go. So we've had other guest stars.
Okay.
Kevin was a guest star. He played Redshirt. He was Redshirt Kevin.
Yeah.
He played the flamboyant bard Havoc to start. Came back as a couple other characters as well. We had... I
know you had a couple. Were they a couple?
Yeah, well, there was. Gosh, her name is Eli, and it's not pronounced Ellie. I think it's.
That sounds right.
But it wasn't Ellie. It was Eli. Eli. Forgive me,
Ellie sounds
Miss.
Right,
and her husband Josh. They played the werewolves in the Curse of Strahd campaign. I actually, we got to be friends on Facebook, so I see stuff from them regularly. But for the life of me, I can't remember how she pronounced her name. But it was different. They joined us for a little bit, for a session. We've also had others, Kelly, Bridget. Trying to think of who else has joined us.
Did you have somebody else for the other? It was the all women podcast, I think. There was some other.
Yes, her name was Kat, I believe.
Okay.
And that was JJ and Mickey's friend. For the all girl podcast, that one was fun.
And Mike came back for a little bit.
Mike did, yep. Mike spent some time doing that adventure.
Dungeon Roll stuff with Kelly. And
I can't remember what we called that one now.
The Sex Hawk stuff.
The one with the Sex Hawk, yes. I remember that distinctly. I'm sure the Hawk does as well.
Yeah, my flaming dude.
The Flamer.
Damn it.
Chris played the Flamer for many episodes. And what was it? Watch the World Burn is pretty much how that ended up.
That was awesome.
At least the immediate area burned.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So yeah, we went from, as Chris was saying, with the evolution. So we had the different games we played. We had the different worlds we've played in, different guests, different regular cast members. Another thing we did different, we started just on the audio, and through that time, we had several different video type episodes that were also audio. So JJ had a bunch of testing out combat kind of sessions, and you can find those on the YouTube channel, Adventures from the Shed. You can also find we had the charity one, Extra Life, the Extra Life all day, the 24-hour. Podcast that we did, which was a blast, and you can find, I think it's 23 out of the 24 hours on YouTube, because Chris and I went to Wendy's at one point, and that part wasn't recorded, but the rest of it
we probably should have. I mean, this could have.
It could have been fun, but
get some grease.
Yeah, we did everything on that day, from playing Dungeon World to playing. At the end of the podcast, you can actually find. My daughter and I playing a Would You Rather card game. that was right towards the end of it. That was a really fun time. So we've had some video along the way, but then just early this year, or late last year, whenever it was, I decided to try and reduce the amount of work I was spending on the podcast, that I would set up to record the video and audio at the same time and just start going straight to YouTube, which we did for... I don't remember how many now. Those out there who've watched can tell me. I know we've had new subscribers on YouTube kind of regularly, although it's still not a large base. I'm still getting a new subscriber every other week or so, which is more than I expect, since it's not really advertised out there. It's really nice to know people are sharing and finding it. But with the way we've progressed right now, so we went from that audio to sometimes video to just video to now, nothing for about 3 months. And so with the stuff I've had going on, that's my excuse, my reason for not having something new out there. But we are trying to get something going like this. Yeah, that's where it is.
Now, we do have some unfinished stuff on deck.
It's a good point. We've got for those who have seen the YouTube video, we started on the Star Trek adventure, and we have, I think I have 3 more episodes of that, which I have to get in there and click make public. So we'll get that out there, and hopefully, like I was saying, we'll have something out in the next, I would say not in the next, but probably in about a couple of months. about a couple of months.
Maybe in time for the holidays.
I want to
Maybe
be
a little present.
I want to be as non-committal as possible. And around Thanksgiving, we'll be thankful that we might get something done by Christmas.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, what else should we talk about? Anything?
I don't know. I mean, I always like to ask people. I know, because we have played Cthulhu now. That's come up a couple times.
Yeah, I actually went and bought the book.
And we threw in, kind of like a version of Cyberpunk. It was based off the, I can't remember the name of the game now. That we ripped it off. It's Dungeon World variant.
Yeah, Sixth World.
Sixth World, yes.
Yes.
But I'm always interested to see if there's something we don't, because I don't pay attention to gaming stuff like I used to.
Yeah, me either.
So there might be something out there like, hey, you guys should check out this game. Maybe we could try to throw it in or something. Or if it's just not even a complete game, maybe it's just like a hey, like we did Cyberpunk, right? We didn't use the Cyberpunk rules, but maybe you guys want to see more sci-fi or something else. Because granted, we're doing Star Trek.
Yep.
But if there's something else like a world that you guys like, oh, use these characters out of this, or something to check out, we're always up for that.
Yeah, and I will say people have said Cthulhu almost every time we've asked.
Yeah, even I was saying Cthulhu.
And the thing is, I went and bought the Call of Cthulhu, the big old book, and I have it. And I don't know, maybe that's what we can try when we pick it up again. But I know that can be a complicated system, so I think we'll want to know a fair amount about it before we start. Plus, if we're only doing audio, we need to make sure it's entertaining enough. If we're doing audio and video, we want to make sure you can see what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it's
and I don't think we've done
less
any superhero
weird
stuff. No superhero games, have we?
No.
So that might be something.
And I just recently, looking through my old stuff, found I have a Marvel superheroes role-playing game from the 80s.
Yeah, I remember that's the one I played back then. Yeah. And I played a little bit of DC,
Yeah, I don't have that one.
And then we've obviously done Mutants and Masterminds.
Mutants and Masterminds.
But yeah, the Marvel's kind of simplified. It's all percentage dice.
That may be something we could check out too.
Yeah.
But yeah, to Chris's point, if you've got something you want us to try, make sure you tell us. And this episode, I'm sure I'll post this one on Facebook, and it'll go on. The video part will go onto YouTube. The audio from the crotch cam is
crotch cam.
that one's going to show up on Podbean on the regular feed. So those who never started checking out the video, you're going to hear this one. As a matter of fact, you're already hearing it. So towards the end, I'm telling you, you're hearing it. I'm good that way. Future. That's awesome.
Went back in time.
Yes. So think back to past you from 16 minutes ago and know that you're a little bit smarter now.
That's pretty cool.
Just a little bit. I'm not, though. I think I'm slightly more stupid having said all that. So in the meantime, I think we'll wrap up. Hey, 5 years.
That's pretty impressive.
5 years. Oh, and for those who want to say, why are you wearing your wedding finger on your right hand? This is the selfie camera, so it's just backwards.
What?
I'm actually much more attractive from the other side.
Guess I'll use the two then. That's a fade into the show.
Just fade. But we'll wrap this up. Everybody out there, bye. Thanks for keeping up with us, and we'll have something new for you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.